Hello and welcome to my channel. Today is Wednesday and that means we are here for Strange and Unusual. I'm finally feeling better so I can do one of my longer content, longer speaking videos. So we're gonna do the Bunyip today. I did not know the Bunyip was a thing. Like if you've ever seen Charmed, like a lot of these things that they talk about are like mentioned in the OG show, and I'm like, so that's a real thing? I thought they just made that up. Okay. But anyway, let's just get into it. Also, if I pronounce things wrong, I'm sorry. I am not the best at pronunciation, but this is mostly Australia, so I'm hoping maybe I won't have too much trouble pronouncing. The Bunyip is a creature from the Aboriginal mythology of southeastern Australia, said to lurk in swamps, billabongs. Also, if you're in Australia and you know what a billabong is, can you tell me? Because I don't know what that is. Creeks, riverbeds, and waterholes. The word Bunyip is usually translated by Aboriginal Australians today as devil or evil spirit. This contemporary translation may not accurately represent the role of the Bunyip in pre-contact Aboriginal mythology or its possible origins before written accounts were made. Some modern sources allude to linguistic connection between the Bunyip and Bunjil, a mythic great man who made the mountains, rivers, man, and all the animals. So basically like God. Yeah, okay. The word Bunyip first appeared in the Sydney Gazette in 1812. It was used by James Ives to describe, quote, a large black animal like a seal with a terrible voice which creates terror among the blacks, end quote. The Bunyip is part of traditional Aboriginal beliefs and stories throughout Australia, while its name varies according to tribal nomenclature. In his 2001 book, writer Robert Holden identified at least 9 regional variations of the creature known as the Bunyip across Aboriginal Australia. The Bunyip has been described as amphibious, almost entirely aquatic. There's no reports of this creature being sighted on land, but I did read somewhere else that there is a version that's on land, but I don't think it's called the same thing. So I'm not really sure about that, but apparently there is a aquatic version and a land version. So they're inhabiting lakes, rivers, swamps, lagoons, billabongs, creeks, waterholes, and sometimes particular waterholes in the water beds. Physical descriptions of bunyips vary widely. George French Angus may have collected a description of a bunyip in his account of a water spirit from the Murrundi people of the Murray River before 1847, stating it is, quote, much dreaded by them. It inhabits the Murray, but they have some difficulty describing it. Its most usual form is said to be that of an enormous starfish. So like Patrick the Starfish on steroids, kind of. Oh my god, what did I just say? The Chalicum Bunyip, an outline image of a bunyip carved by Aboriginal people into the bank of Fiery Creek near Ararat, Victoria, was first reported by the Australian newspaper in 1851. According to the report, the bunyip had been speared after killing an Aboriginal man. So the reporter, he killed somebody and they killed the bunyip. The bunyips, presumably seen by witnesses according to their descriptions, most commonly fit one of 2 categories. 60% of sightings resemble seals or swimming dogs, and 20% of sightings are of long-necked creatures with small heads. The remaining descriptions are ambiguous beyond categorization. The seal dog variety is most often described as being between 4 and 6 feet long. So, like, I was thinking, like, maybe, like, the Loch Ness Monster, which, you know, oh my god, what was I saying? Oh, like, the Loch Ness Monster, do you think that could have been, like, a bunyip? Like, I mean, like, if it existed, I don't know if it did. I'm not saying it did or it didn't. Could very well be there. I don't know. I'm not a professional cryptozoologist here. But I wonder if that would be classified as a bunyip because it's aquatic. Or is it like an ancient dinosaur that's still alive type? You know, I have questions. The remaining descriptions are ambiguous. According to reports, these bunyips have round heads resembling a bulldog, prominent ears, no tail, and whiskers like a seal or otter. The bunyip appears in Ngarangi, dreaming as a water spirit called the Mulawonk, which would get anyone who took more than their fair share of fish from the waterways, or take the children if they got too close to the water. The stories taught practical means of ensuring long-time survival for the Nirjanji, embodying care for country and its people. There have been various attempts to understand and explain the origins of the bunyip as a physical entity over the past 150 years. Writing in 1933, Charles Fenter suggested that it was likely what the, quote, actual origin of the bunyip myth lies in the fact that from time to time, seals have made their way up the Murray and Darling rivers. End quote. And I'm not sure if he's saying then that, like, the Aboriginals don't normally counter seals, so they wouldn't know that it was a seal, or, like, or what? I'm not really sure if he's just, like, basically calling them uneducated, or, if they really wouldn't know what a seal looks like they've never seen one before. I'm not 100% sure of that. The stories taught practical means of ensuring long-term survival. I just read that, didn't I? I did. He then provided examples of seals found as far inland as Overland Corner, Loxton, and Carnargo, and reminded readers that the, quote, smooth fur, prominent apricot eyes, and the bellowing cry are characteristic of the seal, end quote. Especially southern elephant seals and leopard seals. And honestly, I did not know there was different kinds of seals, and I feel like I neglected to exaggerate on, or like expand on that. I didn't know there were different kinds. Another suggestion is that the bunyip may be a folk memory of extinct Australian marsupials, such as, this is gonna get me, Diprotodon, Zygomaturus, Nodotherium, or Palerchestus. This connection was first formally made by Dr. George Bennett of the Australian Museum in 1871. In the early 1990s, paleontologist Pat Vickers, rich and geologist Neil Archbold, also cautiously suggested that Aboriginal legends perhaps have stemmed from an acquaintance with prehistoric bones or even living prehistoric animals themselves. When confronted with the remains of some of the now extinct Australian marsupials, Aborigines would often identify them as the bunyip. They also note that legends about the Maihurung Peringmal of Western Victorian Aborigines may allude to the extinct giant birds and the Dromorthanatide. That probably wasn't right. In a 2017 Australian BirdLife article, Carl Brandt suggested Aboriginal encounters with the southern cassowary inspired the myth. According to the first written description of the bunyip from 1845, the creature laid pale blue eggs of immense size, possessed deadly claws, powerful hind legs, a brightly colored chest, and an emu-like head, characteristics shared with the Australian cassowary. As the creature's bill was described as having serrated projections, each like the bone of the stingray, this bunyip was associated with the indigenous people of far north Queensland, renowned for their spears tipped with stingray barbs and their proximity to the cassowary's Australian range. Another association to the bunyip is shy Australasian bittern. During the breeding season, the male call of this marsh-dwelling bird is a low-pitched boom. Hence, it is occasionally called the bunyip bird. During the early settlement of Australia by Europeans, the notion became commonly held that the bunyip was an unknown animal that awaited discovery, unfamiliar with the sights and sounds of the island continent's peculiar fauna, which is just a really fancy way of saying flowers, vegetation, you know, that kind of stuff. Early Europeans believed that the bunyip described to them was one more strange Australian animal, and they sometimes attributed unfamiliar animal calls or cries to it. Scholars suggest also that the 19th century bunyip lore was reinforced by imported European folklore, such as that of the Irish puka. A large number of bunyip sightings occurred during the 1840s and 1850s, particularly in the southeastern colonies of Victoria, New South Wales, and South Australia, as European settlers extended their range. The following is not an exhaustive list of accounts. In July 1845, the Geelong Advertiser announced the discovery of fossils found near Geelong under the headline, quote, "Wonderful discovery of a new animal," end quote. This was a continuation of a story on fossil remains from the previous issue. The newspaper continued, quote, "On the bone being shown to an intelligent black, he at once recognized it as belonging to the Bunyip, which he declared he had seen," end quote. On being requested to make a drawing of it, he did so without hesitation. The account noted a story of an Aboriginal woman being killed by a bunyip, and the most direct evidence of all, that of a man named Mumbo Ron, who showed several deep wounds on his breast made by the claws of the animal. In January 1846, a peculiar skull was taken by a settler from the banks of Murrumbidgee River near Balronald, New South Wales. Initial reports suggested that it was the skull of something unknown to science. The squatter who found it remarked, "All the natives to whom it was shown called it a bunyip." By July 1847, several experts, including W.S. McLeay and Professor Owen, had identified the skull as the deformed fetal skull of a foal or calf. At the same time, the purported bunyip skull was put on display in the Australian Museum for 2 days. Visitors flocked to see it, and the Sydney Morning Herald reported that many people spoke about their bunyip sightings. Reports of this discovery used the phrase kine pratty as well as bunyip. Explorer William Howell, who explained the skull, also called it a cotton pie. In March of that year, a bunyip, or an immense platypus, was sighted, sunning himself on the placid bosom of the Yarra, just opposite the Custom House in Melbourne. Immediately a crowd gathered, and 3 men set off by boat to secure the stranger, which disappeared when they were about a yard from him. Another early written account is attributed to escaped convict William Buckley in his 1852 biography of 30 years living with the Wathaurong people. His 1852 account records records, quote, "In Lake Mudawari, as well as in most of the others inland, is a very extraordinary amphibious animal which the natives call bunyip." Buckley's account suggests he saw such a creature on several occasions. He adds, "I could never see any part except the back, which appeared to be covered with feathers of a dusky gray color," which honestly to me sounds like a goose. Do they have geese in Australia? I don't know. It seemed to be about the size of a full-grown calf. I could never learn from any of the natives that they had seen either the head or the tail, end quote. Buckley also claimed the creature was common in the Barwon River and cites an example he heard of an Aboriginal woman being killed by one. He emphasized the bunyip was pleased to have supernatural powers. By the 1850s, bunyip was also used as, quote, "a synonym for imposter, pretender, humbug, and the like," end quote. Although this use of the word is now obsolete in Australian English, the term bunyip aristocracy was first coined in 1853 to describe Australians aspiring to be aristocrats. In the early 1900s, Prime Minister Paul Keating used this term to describe members of the Conservative Liberal Party of Australian opposition. The word bunyip can still be found in a number of Australian contexts, including place names such as the Bunyip River and the town of Bunyip, Victoria. Now, this is the story of the bunyip. I really thought that was very interesting because, like, I did not know that there was, like, this whole story behind this thing. I really thought it was just all made up. But anyway, that's it for me today. So, be back Friday because we'll have another Deadly Days coming up. And if you're not already, go find me on my podcast. If you're on my podcast, go find me on YouTube. As always, please don't do anything I wouldn't do. Be cautiously kind to others and make good choices. I'll see y'all Friday. Bye.